So in this video, I just want to take a more, modern approach to populating an HTML select drop-down list with some JSON data. Puts us in about maybe 2015, that sort of stuff. I'm not throwing feet at it in any kind of like Webpack or roll up or parcel. But let's take advantage of some of the features that we're pretty well guaranteed will be there on any browser at this point. And so I've installed the HTTP node server, so we have a backend to test against. I do have a public directory, some snippets to help us along. The SQL I used to generate the JSON in that. So in the public directory, not too much yet. CSS is empty. We're not using that right now. Data, I have some different JSON files to go grab, and I have some no JavaScripts yet. And so if we were to fire this up, probably just get a standard directory listing for our server. So the server's up. It's a little bit laggy, could be because of the video capture on top of it. But basically, we just get the standard directory listing from the server in the public folder in that. So haven't put anything in here yet except just some data files to speed things up. So where to start? Well, if we're going to take a modern approach, then we start with JavaScript first. So I'm going to go over to my JavaScript folder and actually make a new file. And you're either going to see it done two ways, index.js or main.js. I'll go main.js today. I'm from the Java world, so main.js that is. If you're HTML5 purist, probably index.js, but it's trivial at this point. So we have a JavaScript file that's going to do most of the work. But we are in webland, so we have to have at least a little bit of HTML to shoot into the browser. And so I will, on the public folder, right click and go new file, and I will call it index.html. Okay, and I will start it off doc, and I will get rid of these meta tags. I don't need them right now. And I'll just update the title that will show up in the tab. JSON select. Now, in the past, PHP world, early days, we would create all the HTML on the back end and ship it to the front end in that. And so the HTML that would come to the browser would already have the select with all of its options populated and ready to go. And so this is going to be a different approach. Now so that's about all I need. And also, once JavaScript got popular, we would put scripts up in the head part of the document so they would get, kind of what we would call imported or part of your solution. So that's how we used to do imports before there were imports, before there was required. We would link the scripts up in the head and hope they loaded and were available before our page started loading. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to add a select. I'm not even going to put it in a form. One big thing is I got to give it a name. So I'm going to go park select. And I would say come up with some type of naming conventions. Notice there are no options in here. This is where all the options would go in between these two tags. There are none. And early days of the web, we would ship it all from the back end, ready to go in that. So the big thing is I got to tie in my main.js script. So type in my script tag with a source. I'll go JavaScript and main. Done. Interface is done at this point. The rest is all going to be done in code in that. I'm not even going to do an on change event. I'm going to hook that in from the back end as well. So very minimal HTML code is done with this kind of approach. So it's a different style of writing in that. And so I do have some snippets that should help us speed things up because a lot of the work is going to be done in the back end. So I even have a headed snipper, Control-A, Control-Copy, and I'll put that onto my Main.js. Always want to have our documentation done in that. So partially fill this in, come back later in that. Any dependencies? No, we're pretty good here. What are we trying to do? Populate HTML select with JSON data there. So I'll leave that for now. And so we basically need to get started. We're going to have some global variables, and they're here. And so one is two big things we need is where's the data, right? So the data is in locally in data, and it's in park data 4326 JSON. So I'll copy that. And what is the park selector? So now I could type this name wrong, and that can cause me problems in that. And so these are global variables that I have about 3 functions in here. Some of them will need to get access to the park selector. So grab it once from the interface, done. Now this I call these backend hooks. This happens a lot in JavaFX, big time on Android, that you have an XML document on Android that specifies your interface, and then you have a Java class in the back that sort of talks to that, and you're doing all these instead of get element ID, they have find element by ID or something close to that. And so there's a lot of things of where you have to go grab the controls off the interface so that you can see what they're doing, and that's what we're doing here. So I'll call this a backend hook, and that's more of a word term, just so you know. Now we have this I have this thing to figure out, hey, what function am I in, which we'll use. But I do have some function stubs in that. And so we're going to grab these. And so there's not much in here. I'm going to have one that fetches the data. Once the data comes back, load that into the HTML select, the park select control. And then what do we want to do when someone changes their selection? And that. So I'll just drop those into my main. They're going to come in here. And the problem is, there's one problem, not so much a problem in that. I'm also going to grab that name thing. Who am I? So arguments calling name. That's how you don't have to hard code what the function name is. It will dynamically figure out that, hey, I'm in fetch. Hey, I'm in load. And hey, I'm in park change. I like to do that to make sure, am I actually getting into these functions and are they being called? Now, if I run my page right now, yeah, not much is going to happen. This is a big important thing you have to do is, although technically these 2 lines will run, so there will be variables basically available, and we could probably take a look in the watch window, but hey, why not, let's just try this and see. So when we refresh this, we get a page back. Our select is empty, which is what we're actually expecting right now. I could try to go inspect and see if there's a locals. I might have to do like a watch window and that. Is there a nice way to do this right now? Not much in the body, and we could go over to the console and take a look. In that, and if we tried to get into a debugging session, would we even be able to do that? Because we'd have to have a line right about where, maybe here. Like, is this being ran? And it is. When we come in, right, we'll stop on that line. The URL is set, and as I step over this line here, right, it happens, but then I'm out because I'm not actually calling any of these functions. So that's the first part that we're going to have to do. I can close this for now. Go back to Visual Studio. And that. And the big thing is, like I said, we have to call someone who cares, that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it's pretty important to initiate this whole thing. So in Main.js, how do we get this actually going, right? So I actually have to call, hey, go get the park data and that sort of thing. Now again, if I go back and I run this, it's not visually going to change too much, but we should be able to inspect, look at the console and see that message there. right, inside park fetch. Now I might slide the drawer across so that it's always there. Yes. So yes, we're getting into that function. That's good. That's what we want. I'm going to prove that we're actually getting there and not burn a bunch of time. So we got in there, and so we're ready to do the fetch. So I will use a promise. There's something built into the browser, so your expectation is you will be able to do this because it's going to exist in that. So there's something called a fetch in that built into the browser. And what I want to fetch? I want to fetch the URL that I defined earlier. I want to go, hey, go get me this. And that, but because I know it's JSON, I can kind of cheat and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of cheating I'm doing here. Then, right? So go try to get that data. And so what's going to come back to me? Big long chunk of text, big long string. And so what's going to come back? In this case, I have it set to 4326, not the sorted version. This one here. So this big chunk of text, it's one big chunk of text coming back to me. If that's successful, and it should be, it's there, path looks good and all that, then I want to actually flip that from text to actual JavaScript. And so res, that's the data coming back. This is the response object, one equal sign arrow. And then tell res to, hey, convert yourself to JSON kind of deal. And if that works, right, well, we might as well try to load the park, load the data into the park selector. Then there's going to be some data coming back. It won't be text anymore. It'll be JSON. Oops, equal sign. Run load park data. And it takes, we can hover over it, does it pick it up? It takes some data. So we'll just take data and put it in there. Now this data has to match this data, but that name could be different if you wanted that. Now, is that going to work? The big thing about this fetch, I should put in, hey, what if something goes wrong? I should probably catch any errors. Well, if an error does occur, then just log it out to the console. And who do you want to log out? The error. So before 2015, maybe in that, we would have done an XML HTTP request and AJAX call to do this. It gets a little bit complicated with callbacks, but with promises and with the arrow notation, right? We can quickly build up this promise to say, hey, go try to get this URL. If that works out, convert the JSON. If that works out, send the JSON to my function. The thing is, it's asynchronous. I don't know how long it's going to take to get the big chunk of text from the server. I don't know how long it's going to take to convert that big chunk of text into something that's usable. So there could be delays. And so when you're working on the web, you got to write your code in a way that can handle that. And this just catches, like I said, any errors. The thing is, let's go see what happens there. Yes, indeed. So if we go back, we can refresh and that. Oh, we have our breakpoint from before. I'm going to take that out and just continue. It says inside fetch, inside load park. Never hurts to get comfortable with the debugger. Okay, and so if what I can do is, hey, I got inside here, I can actually take a peek at data as it comes by. So I'll refresh it in that, and this is in this local window down here. Try to make it a little bit bigger. To find the magic line. Ooh, there's data. It says there's 203 elements in the array, and so that means that it got the JSON and it was able to convert it for us, and that we have our array of values. And then what we just have to do is start stuffing it into the park selector kind of stuff. So that's the big part that load data is going to do. Its job is just to get the values into the park selector. So we just have a little for loop for for every row of data, and we use of when we're dealing with arrays, I need to create an option. So I'll call OPT is equal to document dot create an element. The element I want to create is an option element. Those are the like items in the list, those options in the select. What I need to do is then set the options text and its value is equal to the row dot text, and the option dot value is equal to the row dot value. And I gotta remember to put the option in the list. Again, we got park select earlier up here. It's sort of like a global variable that I got, so I can take my park select dot options. Now, IntelliSense always gives me trouble on this one. Dot add the option to the list. That should be good. That's enough to test in that. So we'll go back, go to the end. I'm going to take the debugger. I'm actually going to close it and just refresh it. And I have my list of data. Nice. Done. Better if it was sorted. I do have a sorted list. And so we could make that change just to see, right? How hard would it be to, if this is all working, then what do I need to do? I just need to change what the URL is. And that. And so I think I called it, yeah. Now, if there's a typo in the name, I'll get an error. I'll just refresh it. Oh, good job. Inspect. 404 error. Oh, unexpected end of JSON input. Ooh, we could be missing that. So I think I'll just roll back to my unsorted version and that. So we'll close that one there. This is the one I'm on. And that. So there's something wrong in that file. So we'll just go back. Probably have like a little extra quote or something. Let's go back and see if I can actually get it to work. Yeah, it's still working. Good. And that. So the big thing now would be, well, when someone makes a change in the list, I want to fire off some other code. And so usually from HTML, we want to basically, we would be tempted to put, hey, on change in here and that, run a function. But what we'll do is we'll, again, try to hook it from the back end as much as possible in that. And so you can register events on the fly in that. So I've got a little comment in here. Where do we want to do this? I'm going to do it right after the globals area. So right after I get the park select and that, I'm going to hook up the fact that, hey, when someone makes a change in the list, selects something different, run my on park change in that. And so there are about 3 different styles. You might see add event listener is the stock standard one. Attach event is one from Microsoft. But you see a lot of stuff like element on, and this is what the frameworks do. They're probably basically renaming this function because, again, this is very Java looking, add event listener, and this is more JavaScript looking in that. But usually if the event was called on click on the control, you drop the on part and you just have the event name. These actually read better in my mind in that. So you have to understand that it's the on part is lost, but so on change. So when that value changes, run my function. And what I'm doing here is besides I'm sending the event in. The event might be important to what you're doing. In our particular case right now, it is not important, but I'm going to send it anyway. I'll send in the event in that. And what do I want to do? I could log out, right? Console dot log. I could log out the event because there might be information in the event that I need. and that. But really all we need to do is go back to the park selector and find out what is the current value. So park select dot value. That keeps it kind of clean. We're interested in the lat long that the people are choosing in that. But for your code, you might be, no, I need that event. They clicked on the map somewhere and that'll have the location or something like that. So all depends, do you need the event information or do you just need to, okay, it's changed. I can go back and look at the control and get the value. No, we're getting a lat long now. So we can see that down there. That is changing. So that's good. I'm happy with that. That basically means everything's working. So we're taking advantage of JSON. We're taking advantage of promises. And the way we're writing is much more modern in terms of actually, especially when we do adding event listeners in that. That is definitely sort of a newer way to hook in from the back end to the front end interface. Because again, my index HTML doesn't say what to do when the select changes, but back in my main is when I find that control, tack on my function to listen for its change events, and then my code starts to fire. So that's all I want to show you in this one. It's just a more modern approach to populating the select with JSON, right? But also writing the JavaScript in a style that's more modern and actually matches other platforms like Android and JavaFX. That's all for now.